Everybody, I'm Ryan, and today we're going to talk about Affinity in Modern, specifically the Azorius Affinity deck in Modern. We're going to talk about card choices in the deck, how to play the deck, and the overall strategy of the deck. Let's jump into it. Look, I found an artifact. A double dagger. Whoa, this is black and red, not Azorius. Come on. So this is Azorius Affinity in Modern. It's actually pretty powerful, especially with its counter magic and the amount of cards it draws and the pressure it can apply with certain hands. It's pretty cool. But we're going to start with the lands. It's playing a lot of the artifact lands, even if they come in tapped, because it makes a lot of other things in our deck cheaper, like Thoughtcast and Thought Monitor and stuff like that. Also, just being an artifact makes the constructs from Urza Saga even bigger and whatnot. As far as other lands, going to play a Hallowed Fountain, an Island, an Otawara, just because it's kind of free. Spire of Industry makes our mana way better as well. And then the big one is Urza Saga. It's a saga land. First chapter is you can tap it to gain a colorless. Second chapter is it gains 2 mana, create a 0/0 colorless construct artifact creature token. With this token gets +1/+1 for each artifact you control. In its third chapter, search your library for an artifact card with mana value 0 or 1 and put it onto the battlefield and then shuffle. The beauty of that is we're playing a lot of artifacts that cost 0 or 1, so we can toolbox our deck really well with a ton of 1-ofs, and also use Urza Saga as a kill condition because we're playing so many artifacts. That being said, we're playing Mishra's Bauble. Is a 0 mana artifact. We can tap it and sacrifice it. Look at the top card of target player's library. Draw a card at the beginning of the next turn's upkeep. Just a great way to play free artifacts, to turn on things like Mox Opal, and to be able to recast off of Emery over and over so that we can always continue to draw cards and kind of burying our opponent in card advantage. We're playing 2 Mox Amber. Mox Amber's a 0-cost legendary artifact. We can tap it to add 1 mana of any color among legendary creatures and planeswalkers you control. As far as legendary creatures go, we're playing Tamiyo and Emery. This card does effectively nothing besides just being an artifact if we don't have Tamiyo or Emery, but that's 8 cards, and this deck draws a lot of cards as well, so it's reasonable, but we're only playing 2 because of that. We're playing 4 Mox Opal. Mox Opal is a 0-cost legendary artifact, has Metalcraft, add 1 mana of any color, activate only if you control 3 or more artifacts. And that is very, very easy to do, and allows us to get a surplus of mana very early, and also being 0 cost allows you to very easily have this affinity while also giving a mana, be a trigger for Kappa Cannoneer, etc., etc. Playing a single Tormod's Crypt to grab off of Urza Saga if needed. 0-cost artifact. Tap it, sacrifice it, exile target player's graveyard. Just excellent graveyard hate. Playing 3 Portable Hole. Portable Hole is a 1 mana artifact. When this artifact enters, exile target non-land permanent an opponent controls with mana value 2 or less until this artifact leaves the battlefield. Just like a really decent catch-all that we don't mind drawing against 99% of decks, but also we can fetch out with Urza Saga. We're playing Tamiyo Inquisitive Student. Tamiyo Inquisitive Student is a 0/3 with flying. When it attacks, investigate, so create a clue token, which notably is also an artifact. And when you draw your 3rd card in a turn, exile Tamiyo, then return her to the battlefield transformed under her owner's control, and it transforms into a planeswalker that starts at 2 loyalty, is +2 until your next turn. Whenever a creature attacks you or planeswalker you control, it gets -1/-0 until end of turn. It's -3 is return target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. If it's a green card, add 1 mana of any color. And it's -7 is draw cards equal to half the number of cards in your library rounded up. You get an emblem with you have no maximum hand size. So the front side of this is meant to make it so Mox Amber is decent, but also be able to get a lot of clues, kind of bury your opponent in that card advantage. And then if it ever flips to Tamiyo Season Scholar, allowing you to grab instants of sorceries like counter magic to kind of bury your opponent, but also it's something that your opponent has to deal with, because if it ever ults, you kind of just win the game. The rest of these 1 mana cards are toolbox cards for Urza Saga. Aether Spellbomb's a 1 mana artifact. You can pay blue, sacrifice it, return target creature to its owner's hand, or you can pay a generic mana to sacrifice it and draw a card. Just a decent card if you just want to draw a card off of Urza Saga, or just getting things out of the way so you can kill your opponent, or really answer what they're doing after they overcommit to it. Haywire Might's a 1 mana 1/1, notably an artifact that we can grab with Urza Saga. When this creature dies, you gain 2 life. Hang and pay a green, sacrifice it, and exile target non-creature not artifact or non-creature enchantment. Great artifact and enchantment hate. Also, it's exile, so like in the mirror match and stuff, you can get rid of the indestructible lands and whatnot. Playing Lava Spur Boots, a 1-mana equipment. Equipped your creature gets +1/+0, has haste and ward 1. Great way to speed up the aggro, especially alongside Kappa Cannoneer. Pithy Needle, a 1-mana artifact. As a side effect, entered, choose a card name. Activated abilities of sources with a chosen name can't be activated unless they are mana abilities. Just a great way to neuter activated abilities as needed. And then we're playing Shadow Spear, which is a 1-mana legendary artifact. Equipped your creature gets +1/+1 as trample and lifelink. You can pay 1 mana to have permanents your opponent control lose hexproof and indestructible till end of turn, and you can equip it for 2 mana. This is a great way to pull ahead of the aggressive decks, and a great just kind of value grab off of Urza Saga, because you're probably making constructs anyway, and you can make the constructs very, very scary with Shadow Spear. As far as 3-mana cards go, we're playing Emry, Lurker of the Lock, which is a 3-mana 1/2. However, it has affinity for artifacts. Whenever it enters, mill 4 cards, and we can tap it to choose target artifact card in your graveyard. You may cast that card this turn. Kind of beautiful part about that is like there's like value anyway, but there's also neat combos where being able to cast Misha's Bauble every single turn means you effectively draw 2 cards a turn, which is pretty cool. And also means that artifacts that your opponent deal with, they kind of don't deal with because you can just Emry them back. So Emry often becomes like a must answer, but if it's not answered, you kind of can bury your opponent in that card advantage. We're playing 3 Metallic Rebuke. Metallic Rebuke is a 3-mana instant with improvise, meaning you can tap artifacts and that pays for a generic, and you can counter target spell unless the controller pays 3. Just a great effectively 1 mana in this deck. Mana leak, just being able to deal with stuff and being able to leave less mana up so you can cast other spells more often. And you're playing 2 Force of Negation in the main deck. It's a 3-mana instant. If it's not your turn, you may exile a blue card from your hand rather than pay the spell's mana cost. Counter target non-creature spell. If that spell is countered this way, exile it instead of putting it into his Arnis graveyard. This is just a great way to allow us to tap out but still deal with combos, because really, like, we're outvaluing most decks. So the way that we die is either being out aggroed, which we're trying to deal with our lower cost spells, or we're comboed. So that, of course, a negation can kind of deal with that. We're playing for Thoughtcast. Thoughtcast is a 5-mana sorcery. However, it has affinity for artifacts. Draw 2 cards. So this effectively turns into a 1-mana draw 2 cards. Again, continuing to bury our opponents in that card advantage that I was talking about. We're playing for Kappa Cannoneer. It is a 6-mana 4/4 with improvise. So very often it can be a 1-mana 4/4. Has ward 4, which means it's almost never going to die with targeted spot removal. And it says whenever this creature or another artifact you control enters, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature and it can't be blocked this turn, excuse me. What's notably about that is it counts itself, so really it's a 5/5 when it enters the battlefield. And we have so many artifacts in our deck, this gets pumped up very quickly and can often kill our opponent in 2 or maybe 3 turns. And then lastly, we have Thought Monitor, which is a 7-mana 2/2 with affinity for artifacts and flying. When this creature enters, draw 2 cards. It's notably an artifact itself as well. Very often this is 1-mana 2/2 flyer that happens to replace itself and get an extra card, which is very solid. So in the main deck, you're attempting to toolbox your deck with Urza Saga, play a ton of artifacts, capitalize on having all of those artifacts with cards like Thoughtcast and Thought Monitor and Emry and whatnot, and just create constructs and kill your opponent that way, or Kappa Cannoneer, kill your opponent that way, while you're just burying them in card advantage through a bunch of different routes.
Oh, hello there. I'm glad you made it this far in the video. It probably means you're enjoying what you're watching. And I just wanted to let you know that I have a TCG Player store that funds a lot of the content that you're seeing, that in part allows me to do this full time. Because as you can see from my view count, I do not make enough money to be able to actually do this. So if these videos have helped you in any way, there's a few ways that you can support me. Beyond just like donating money, but things that you can get stuff back on. If you have cards you want to sell, then you should email me at justbottingbiz@gmail.com. Put right here. It's also in the description of every one of the videos. We can figure something out. I can make some offers. Having more inventory is super, super helpful, and you get money. And you can support me. The other way you can support me is by buying from my TCG Player store, which is also linked down below and in the link tree and all of that stuff. Link right here. You should totally check that out. I'll send you some cards, maybe write you a little note if I know that you're from the videos. That's it. Please consider it and enjoy the rest of your video.
As far as the sideboard goes, we're playing 3 Dispatch. Dispatch 1 mana instant, tap target creature. However, if you have Metalcraft, exile that creature. Very easy to get Metalcraft, so really it's just 1 mana exile target creature. So just decent spot removal for creatures. We're playing 4 Consign to Memory. Consign to Memory is a 1 mana instant with Replicate for 1 mana. Counter target triggered ability or colorless spell. Very good against things like Storm, Eldrazi. Decent against Amulet Titan, or really anything where there's triggered abilities that kill you or artifacts that you need to counter. We already talked about Force Negation. You can play that in the board. Whip Flare is a 2 mana sorcery. Deals 2 damage to each non-artifact creature, so a one-sided board wipe against decks that are going very wide. Notably, though, Emery is not an artifact, so Whip Flare will kill Emery, so keep that in mind. Though we're not really looking to get a ton of value off of Emery against decks where Whip Flare comes in against. Playing Wear Tear. Wear Tear is a fuse card. On one side is 2 mana instant, destroy target artifact. On the other side, 1 mana instant, destroy target enchantment. Very good spot removal for artifacts and enchantments. And we can even get the red side reasonably easy with Mox Opal or Spire of Industry, which is kind of cool. And then we're playing Damping Sphere. Is a 2 mana artifact. If a land is tapped for 2 or more mana, it produces colorless instead of any other type of mana. Each spell a player casts costs 1 more to cast for each other spell that player has cast this turn. Very good against the Storm decks. Very good against decks like Eldrazi and Amulet Titan. It's kind of shutting down combos or giant mana advantages off of the lands. That is Azorius artifacts in Modern. If you liked this video, please be sure to like and subscribe. Check me out on social medias. Links are above me and in the description. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.